Thank you for the second proposition speaker. We hereby call upon the opposition second speaker. Here.
The first question I'm going to answer in this speech is, what exactly is Sarawak nationalism? For a team that accuses us of not giving a proper definition, note that the definition from proposition is equally, if not more, unclear. They tell us that they have to defend Sarawak pride. At that point, the question is, what is the difference then between Sarawak pride and Sarawak nationalism? Presumably, in order to be really proud of something, it is an inevitable consequence. You have to identify with it as a result. Note also that the exact characterization given in first proposition speech of Sarawak nationalism being a general sense that we need more rights. We see ourselves as separate, of having separate interests in terms of division of oil royalties. All of these are also logically necessary in order for Sarawak to advocate for the very same things that proposition says that they will also advocate for on their side of the house. We would suggest then that, generally speaking, realistically, Sarawak pride or Sarawak nationalism are one and the same. That's to say, it is an idea that our interests are mutually exclusive, that a rising tide does not lift all boats. Some boats sink. That's to say, when Malaysia grows by taking our oil royalty and reinvesting it into West Malaysia, we lose out as a result. And it's this acknowledgement that drives Sarawakian people and Sarawakian politicians that has to be done in order for us to advocate for those very same rights proposition says that it will advocate for anyway. But I would even challenge them to give us any reason as to why, in a world absent of Sarawak nationalism, that rationality will be the alternative, that technocracy will be the alternative. Why? If it is the case that politicians are as self-serving as they say, and are using this as a way by which they can play on individuals' mentalities, why wouldn't they find something else that's even more divisive in their world? Such as race, for example, right? Like, we would suggest that if it is the case that the most politically expedient thing for individuals to do is to manipulate and control the public, it is the exact same thing that would happen on proposition bench as well. Two questions, therefore. Firstly, who politically helps for advocacy to Sarawak? And secondly, on individual, non-governmental ways by which Sarawakian nationalism helps us. But before I get into that, one extraneous point of rebuttal on the idea that division is inherently bad and we should therefore avoid it. Note at the start of this rebuttal that there was no impact of that argument. If we are more divided, or there's a perception of division, so what? We would suggest that even if we get more divided as a result of this, there was no end reasoning as to why that division is inherently a bad thing. But notice also that the alternative is worse. In a world where inequality exists, where our resources are being extracted from us every day, when we are, aside from Kelantan, East Malaysia are the two poorest states in Malaysia and two of the least developed states in Malaysia. An illusion that we are united and therefore mutually benefit from the development of Malaysia without acknowledging that development doesn't benefit us is another form of colonialism that thus, yes, unites us, but also ignores the inequalities that exist for the poorest. Therefore, unity is, in some instances, a bad thing, because it ignores the ways by which this unity is exploitative towards us. Therefore, two questions. Firstly, on who is the most politically effective in helping Sarawak. What was the proposition's claim? They tell us that because of ethno-nationalism is a separate thing, by the way, this debate is about nationalism, but never mind. Presumably, it replaces ideas like technocracy or rationality. They want Sarawakians to rationally come to the bargaining table and discuss things rather than relying on nationalism. A couple of responses here. Firstly, there's no inherent reason why these are mutually exclusive. That's to say, if we have a strong political will to get more resources for Sarawak, and politicians don't achieve that, the nationalists are going to be upset with you in either world, even if, for example, this is driven primarily by a sense of nationalism. There's no inherent reason why these things are mutually exclusive. But we would even suggest that the alternative that they defend of calm, cold rationality doesn't actually exist. Why? We would suggest a couple of things. Firstly, in the world without nationalism, you as an individual acting on your political interests don't identify with the rest of Sarawak. Who do you identify with? Your class, whether you're upper, middle, or lower class. Your race, whether you're Chinese, Iban, Dayak, Malay, etc. Your personal background, your city, or whether you're in the city or in rural areas. We will suggest that they divide individuals even further, the point at which we don't identify as one Sarawak, but as individual races and individual geographies within Sarawak, where we are constantly opposed to each other and never fighting for our rights against West Malaysia, who are the ones exploiting us at the end of the day. We will suggest that all of these identities are just as vulnerable to exploitation. At least Sarawak puts food on the table of the most vulnerable, the point at which we're demanding our rights back from West Malaysia as a result of Sarawak nationalism. Secondly, they tell us that because of Sarawak nationalism, West Malaysia will exclude us from the bargaining table because they view us as inherently different or identifying differently. They don't exclude us from the bargaining table because we identify differently. They exclude us from the bargaining table because they want our oil. Logically speaking, there are material reasons why they want to exclude us in either world. The crucial difference is when the levers of power are held by Sarawakians. And this happens a lot, as first proposition conceded. When, for example, Barisan Nasional split up into different splinter parties because of 1MDB. When, for example, there's a hung parliament and there are opportunities for Sarawakians to become kingmakers, when GPS can get more seats than DAP, even though we have fewer seats, that is the point at which Sarawakians are able to demand those rights. And we don't need to be included by the generosity of West Malaysians. We are included by virtue of us having material power over parliament. These are scenarios that are incredibly beneficial for us as a result. We don't need that generosity, we have power. Next, the audience, to be fair, the audience debater did have a great question. They asked, well, why does nationalism inherently create political change? We will suggest that the way by which nationalism drives individuals and unites individuals and highlights the inequalities that exist are the ways by which we can actually get this change as a result. We will suggest, therefore, that only through nationalism and the pride that they suggest is that they can defend too, even though they don't explain to us the real difference between pride and nationalism, is the way by which Sarawakians can look at each other and realize that we have united interests. We have united interests for more oil to our people, more infrastructure to our people. The point at which we don't think ourselves as Kuchingites or Mirians, but think of ourselves as Sarawakians, that's the point at which we can actually drive ourselves forward and actually help each other as a result. Therefore, so as a result, it is actually, if you take a look at the idea of unity, the proposition that divides people even further among all of these even more pernicious lines. Next, on the idea of Sarawakian exit or Srexit. Like, a couple of responses here. The first is that it's just an unrealistic outcome that Srexit will actually become a massive impact of Sarawak nationalism. For the very simple reason that it is treason. Literally, and very few political parties actually make it the central part of their manifesto. And if they ever become inherently successful, odds are they will, to a large extent, be unable to push that through. But we do argue that it is not that bad a thing that at least the discussion is on the table, because it shifts the Overton window, right? Meaning the range of topics that are inherently valuable. If people are realizing that we have been so exploited to the point whereby some of us want to even leave Malaysia, from our own country, an incredibly radical idea, that's the point at which other ideas become less radical in comparison. Surely, 90% of our oil going over our shores instead of 95 no longer seems as radical if we're comparing it to the alternative of leaving Malaysia altogether. Therefore, as a political strategy, it's not too bad that some elements of our society are discussing this as an option on the table. Next, they tell us that generally speaking, this stops Sarawakian politicians from being willing themselves to talk on the table. That's to say, they don't want to go and discuss with West Malaysians and bring in the possibility of more rights. Why? If Sarawak politicians want more rights and it's in our pragmatic interest to do so, I don't see any reason why you could both be deeply caring of Malaysian and deeply caring of Sarawak, even above and beyond the broader Malaysian project, and also on a pragmatic level, realize that you have to work with the West Malaysian politicians in order for you to be able to get those outcomes that nationalism drives you to want. That argument relies on a very ungenerous characterization of the politicians of Sarawak, many of whom are watching this debate as well. So, moving on to the second question, why do we directly help Sarawakian people? Parents, to give you a couple of reasons. The idea that that as Sarawakians, the point at which we, even if we're not talking about politics, right, but we're just talking about individual efforts to help Sarawakian people by doing things like channeling money towards initiatives like the Sarawak Initiative, like, for example, non-government organizations that help Sarawak in particular, doing things like purchasing Sarawakian goods rather than imported goods, because we generally care about Sarawak as a whole. When we support the things like the creation of TV Sarawak, these are ways by which we can help Sarawakans even without relying on a political system. What was their response to this? They suggest that it is due to pride or ingenuity. Notice that pride and ingenuity often are not necessarily enough for you to move and change and give material resources. That's to say, when you care about someone else as part of your political community, that is when you're willing to donate money. You don't just donate money when you're just generally proud of something. You donate money when you see other people as fellows of your own. In our world, we give you material change. We give you the change needed to help create that inequality. And we don't hide the exploitation beyond the veneer of unity. So proud to oppose.
Here. Thank you very much. From the second opposition speaker, Mr. Ian. All right, now we present it again to the floor. If anyone on the floor wishes to present the argument forward, please stand up. If a mic will be provided to you. You have 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Coming to national unity, can you achieve unity in Malaysia? You look at the Semenanjung. What is going on in Semenanjung? Are they promoting unity in Semenanjung? I don't think so. They are fighting and quarreling every day. And the late Adnan Satem said, you look at them, they are quarreling every day, fighting every day. We in Sarawak should not follow them. So don't talk to Sarawak about unity. Sarawak has better 10 times, 100 times better unity than in West Malaysia.
All right, now we present it to the floor again. There is another audience debater.
Good evening, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. So, it is because of nationalism we maintain our rights of MA 63. If we regret our nationalism, we would lose our rights. My justification is this. Think of women's rights. I believe that we all can agree that throughout history, that women, they have been discriminated. They have been told to stay at home and don't go out and work. But it is because of the activists for women's rights like Malala that have fought for the rights of women to be treated equal. That is why that now they have the choice to work or whether not to work. It is because they have fought for their rights. And the same applies to Sarawak. We must fight for our rights. We must not regret our nationalism. If we regret our nationalism, we will lose our right. We will lose MA 63. So, let it be known that Sarawak and Sabah are two of the most undeveloped states in Malaysia. If we let go of MA 63, wouldn't this open more opportunity to inequality for development of Sarawak, for the development of Sarawak? So please, to the side government, explain to all the Sarawakian here, how will the removal of MA 63 be beneficial for our development, for the future of Sarawak, and for the future of the sons of Sarawak. Thank you.